We are. So I'm going to welcome everybody with just a reminder of what happened on Monday night. And Rob was there and Linda was there. David Steele was there. And it was, unfortunately, it was a little later in the evening, so we were there a long time. But I hope all of you read the submission on behalf of the steering committee and all of your respective RNOs. And I did announce all y'all's name who were working on this all last, 2 months?
So we're on record.
So you are on the record. I didn't want to be out there by myself. So,
Just gonna blame it, spread it.
see who, like the this goes. All right, so here we go.
Okay.
This round, and if anybody is, would like some sparkling that's non-alcoholic, this is just a sparkling pear drink. So if anybody would like that.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Orange.
Just pass the ball.
The bottle. Just keep moving the cup.
Yeah.
We'll drink it, and there is another one in there. Good. So the meeting, I will just. There were not very many speakers on this, and there were no speakers in opposition, even though the council acknowledged that there were some letters received in opposition. They were the same ones that were received at the time of planning board and Moody. So they were just more or less acknowledged. I got
Maybe on the mechanical.
You're on the clock.
So that's good.
There we go. All right, so
You've got some experience. That's right.
I was a bartender. I know how to do this. So keep it flowing and,
Here's your.
oh, okay, there we go.
Yeah, just pass out. We'll give her more.
So let's toast to all of.
We're not ready yet.
members that-
Cheers.
Get two more.
Wait, hold on. You want champagne?
Sure. All right, girl, there it is.
She goes.
Yeah, one more part.
Everyone else have something?
Oh, Richard.
All you playing along at home?
Has one, Linda. Oh, okay.
Okay, so to the successful effort of the steering committee and its members and the RNOs and East-West partners, congratulations. And Stuart, all of your help, much help that you provided and will provide. So here's.
Cheers.
Cheers to.
With a special thanks to Lynn.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I am very glad that we got there. And yeah, we'll look forward to, if you all want to see the video, it's now up.
It is.
It is, and I'll send it around to anybody. who
Does
wants.
Channel 8 no longer exist?
Yeah, it was.
No, they don't,
They do.
yeah, they were,
It was,
yeah.
Probably, it was on Channel 8.
it was on Channel.
You could watch it in real time and then it was
Go. What does Comcast call Channel 8?
Channel 8. I just said
Is it channel?
Channel 8 and there they were.
And they actually, for everyone who doesn't know, many of you do, we had a Cherry Creek North Neighborhood Association sponsored Denver Decides last Saturday?
No, yeah, soon, recent.
A week ago.
Okay, so it was.
Together.
It was to hear a number of ballot initiatives where we had the pro and con, the fur ban, the
Slaughterhouse.
slaughterhouse ban, and then the mayor showed up and talked about the tax increase, and the head of Denver Health.
Denver Health.
Yeah, Donna Lynn showed up. So we had one woman who I used to be on a board with in the Alliance of Professional Women, Kim Monson, showed up as the anti for all tax. She was, poor thing, she was up there all the time. She
Yeah.
was like,
Against everything.
taxpayers shouldn't have to pay for this,
Yeah.
but she's a very cool woman. And so that was very fun for our neighborhood to be highlighted. And for people to come, we were at the church up on Sixth Avenue.
Wow.
So it was a lovely event. Chad Lake was there and Denver Decides and the League of Women Voters. It was really successful. The funniest thing is that church has a person who lives on site as the caretaker, and she has this gorgeous cat, long-haired, beautiful cat. And when the fur man was, the cat walked up and went meow.
Right on you.
Yeah. That was pretty funny. So, but we'll get down to our meeting here shortly. And I just want to, again, give a big shout out for everybody who showed up and was thoughtful about this. And
Thank
we
you
keep you
so
every-
much for your support. Thank you. We truly appreciate it. And it was so wonderful to have you speak in person, Lou, and everyone who joined virtually as well. Like, we truly appreciated it. And we're so excited to work together for many years to come.
Welcome to the neighborhood.
Yeah, welcome to the neighborhood. Officially.
And Lou, your presentation was perfect right down to the last second.
Yeah,
And then you were done.
yeah, Amy too.
Must work for TV.
I was very careful to express what many of us had talked about over the last 3 years, that it was unfortunate that East West had to do the heavy lifting on everything and the city never really showed up. And except, I mean, Olga, you weren't on this, but I had sent a couple emails to Fran, and we used to have somebody that come and talk to it. And for projects this big, it would have been nice to have some more involvement with planning. So I did put that on the record. I did not go into a lot of the detail because with 3 minutes, and thank you, many of you didn't have time. But I did want to express that because I do think it would be helpful for us all to continue to have communication directly with the city from time to time. So with that, drink up, there's more, and we will start working through on our agenda.
Everybody's
Yeah.
good.
I am going to turn it over first to council updates, and I think, Owen, you are on. I don't see anybody from Cashman's office or anybody else, so you have the floor, sir.
Sweet. Hey, everybody. It's good to see you. Congratulations. Just 2 updates from Councilwoman Sawyer's office. The first is that the new sidewalk fees were passed by City Council. They go into effect in January of 2025. It'll be about $150 for most people. It'll show up on your wastewater bill. Stay tuned for that. And then the second one is on October 6th. Councilwoman Sawyer is having her biannual community cleanup day. So we're cleaning 16 bus stops. A few of them are on University, some of them are on First, and then the others are on Alameda, and then cleaning half of the city-owned parks in District 5. So good to see you all.
Thank you. Thanks, Owen. Okay, I will turn it over to Richard,
Yes,
just to talk about bid.
what's going on in the bid? So, if you know, we have a little construction upcoming. So,
Upcoming.
upcoming and currently going on, it's about more down. So just so everybody knows, we have some big concrete pours will be coming up on Second and Fillmore. I'm talking to the tune of like 20 concrete trucks an hour moving through to pour for one day. So we got a big pour in this job. So we're coordinating that. We're working with the vendors and we're ensuring that that's going to flow without being a big impact to the neighborhood. Top of that, Clayton Lane will start their abatement here in the next week, and they will get started on the project at Clayton Lane. The 299 Milwaukee apartment building is going to be Beck Construction building that. You'll see that fencing has gone up and that will extend out, and that project will kick off the ground with the office building on the other side of Milwaukee starting about a month behind them. So those projects should all be going by the end of this year on top of the ones that we have currently going. So
And isn't the Waldorf going to be going
the
to
Waldorf's going to, that's.
That's
January, maybe?
No, it hasn't gotten through design. review.
Oh, okay. I thought that was starting.
I think they have a solution for their alley, you know, they have to
So,
get rid of an alley and add stuff, so they're coming along, but a lot of dates are kind of in flux, and it has to do with the capital markets, interest rates, and construction costs, but those ones I just told you about are ones that we're confirming with people that they're going.
There's a process to get rid of the alley though, isn't there?
They're going.
I mean,
Yeah, they're basically going to abandon one and add a new one. So
You're gonna add a new one.
have to add a new one, coming from another from the other side. So they're gonna have it on the backside of the building.
Yeah, there was nothing,
Bad one?
Yeah, like this.
no agreements were reached with the Laurel residents to go in and try to work together on that alley. So that will stay, I think, a public alley.
Mhm.
And so, but there's still, we don't have the final plan.
Yeah.
So as soon as we do, it'd be great to get them to come and present it. So we'll try to keep them in the loop and at the table.
Is this the plan for the east side of, Clayton Lane?
No, what we were talking about right now
Waldorf.
was the Waldorf.
Yeah, Clayton Lane's approved and they're moving forward.
Yeah.
You've also purchased the east side of.
The Orange Theory building. So they purchased that Orange Theory building.
We haven't
The
seen
NP did. We haven't seen anything on that yet.
They just bought it, so
Just
that's.
the west side, Clayton Lane.
Yes.
Sears.
The old
Big
Sears,
Sears.
Crate and Barrel.
Crate and Barrel going.
Crate and Barrel, the old Sears will be going, be 3 stories of residential, about a parking garage and a residential building.
The Matt Jugland project?
Yeah.
Is that, and when is that starting?
That's gonna start, they'll start doing the abatement in about a week.
Oh, okay.
So they've already cleared the deck with some of the,
Yeah.
customers.
What we'll try to do is, like we do on a fairly annual basis, is do a development update, maybe the first part of the year. And then we can find out where everything is. Let me ask a quick question about that. Have they filed their parking plans, their construction parking plans?
I do not have I don't have the construction parking plans yet, but 299 will get here soon.
Okay,
So
when you get those, would you share them with me? And then we will keep them available for, especially the people in Clayton North.
Yeah.
To know, because we have a lot of people parking up in here.
So Lou, do you have parking plans for the one on Adams Street and the one on Cook Street?
I do not have those yet. Well, the Adams, all we did ask him about it.
Yeah.
All of their parking is at the mall. Which we know doesn't really,
Right.
but,
So, I mean, because those two projects are really close to the neighborhood.
and the,
Well, they're right in the
is
neighborhood,
it
so, basically.
tomorrow?
Yeah.
Yeah, so tomorrow is the groundbreaking on the Madeira Cook Street. So that's another apartment building. It's not in the bid. It's a CMX 5 zone. And they'll be doing another apartment building just like the one almost across the street, as we understand it.
So are we gonna, well, I guess that's a neighborhood stuff, put together those communication
yeah,
things? so
yeah,
that-
about that.
We have talked about it, we're just not. I think we've got a little bit of catching up to do.
Richard, do you have any updates on that crepe space? I get asked that every single day. We don't know what it is or who got it, or it just sits there.
nothing yet. I have no updates.
I bet they tried to move locations and it failed.
Okay, thanks.
Last question, on the parking garage where they're gonna have the 3 stories, this is next to Whole Foods.
Yeah.
Is the parking garage are they closing much of it to parking during the construction or all of
They
it?
don't have a full plan. They're gonna have to close sections of it, but
Yeah.
it has to stay open. There's rights on that parking garage for the parking, so they have to keep it open during construction.
Okay.
I'm sure safety is gonna dominate the conversation. We'll have to, of course, do it safely, but I think a lot of sections of it are back. But there's Whole Foods has rights in that garage, I believe, so it has to remain open.
Okay.
A certain number of spaces have to be left open for their park customers. I will mention one more thing about East West. I am preparing a memo. It's basically, I'm preparing an outline that will go up on our website. So anybody could go there and click on it and see what the project is, what the process was, very summary on that. A copy of the development and community benefit agreement and some key points. And so when I get that done, we will be uploading it to our website. You guys are welcome to post it on your website or link it if you'd rather just do that. And we'll get a link to you so that you can share it with all your RNOs. And if people want to look at that and say, well, what was this thing? How did it work? Let's have a little link that you can send around or put on your own websites.
So Lou, the agreement, which I think is fabulous, but the enforceability of that, I mean, I know that steering committee is taking the lead of that to make sure that they do what they agreed to. If they just decide, well, we're not going to do that, what is our recourse as a steering committee, as all the neighborhoods?
There's a procedure in the document. I'm happy to go over it, maybe at the end if anybody wants to look at it and I can walk you through it. But essentially, we have to give them notice of what the problem is, what the notice of default is. So that we
Okay,
walk through here, are the things we think you're not complying with, give them a chance to comply. If they don't comply, we can then file a writ of mandamus, it's called. So it's an action to enforce whatever it is that they're not doing. So,
and then do we have to hire attorneys and stuff to do that, or,
well, we probably would.
I mean,
It's likely that we could,
not that
we
they're
could
not
find
gonna do
somebody
what they say, but.
here's some time that's got an
Right.
active license. I don't.
Right.
And,
Yeah,
but the thing is that we have the rights to recover any costs and
okay,
expenses.
all right,
in-
okay, so there's a process. that-
There is a very
Specific
detailed,
process.
specific process with enforceability rights and collection rights. So, since we don't have obligations other than to respond timely. And that's where we had negotiated some provisions that if they give a notice to me and I get it out to all of you and nobody responds back and you lose your right,
Right.
within that 30-day period. So, the area RNOs, and then the steering committee can take its vote and sign your name to it. If the area RNOs don't take action. And that's really to protect them in case the area RNO just goes defunct. Because some are so inactive and their boards are not active enough to do that. That will take something if these active people somehow move on and nobody wants to step up and take their place. So I don't anticipate that happening, but it's a possibility. So we drafted to the possibility. So it protects them because otherwise it's not like we have a lot of obligations.
Right.
We have an obligation to be there, to work with them, to respond to their questions, to meet with them from time to time, to pass around the information. But, we're not the ones with the heavy obligations. So it's also up to us to keep on them from time to time.
So it's the RNO's responsibility
No, the steering committee is the head of it.
is the head of it.
But the RNOs are equal participants. I mean, we get notice it goes to the area RNOs as they're defined, which are really, Northeast Country Club and Hilltop.
Right.
And then we obviously will be sharing with the other friends and neighbors of the steering committee, members of the North, members of the South. So everyone will be in the loop. And we'll keep the communication just to make it fair for them, so they don't have to go to all these different entities, is really funneled through the steering committee. So they have one major point of information sharing. That's how it's set. But I'll be putting all of that in a summary memo so people in the neighborhood can read it and they can say, oh, so it wasn't just a, light agreement. It really has some teeth. And they'll be watching it as this thing goes forward. And so, but I wanted you to know that was going to happen.
Lou, as East-West gets their financing and can begin to move forward, if they have changes to the PPG, are they obligated to come back to the steering committee?
Yes. In the PPG, there was one little amendment that came up, which is what if anybody watched, they took that up at the very beginning. So they had some technical changes to the PPG. They sent me the redlined version of it. None of what was being changed impacted anything we were doing. So it was fine. But, as they move forward with now they're getting into the real planning part, right?
Exactly.
There may be some things, but that's why we're going to be at the table. And if they need to do, and again, if it's something that is not impactful to the material points that we've negotiated, we're going to stay out of their way and let them do their business.
Yeah.
That's
And
that's our job.
see, I'm still not clear. Appreciate all of you being here. I think the Design Advisory Board is a great group.
We're going to come to that.
Next on the agenda.
Nice segue.
I guess, if we can move, are we good to move on with this? So, I'm gonna turn it, do you have anything else,
Lou, can I ask
Richard, on?
Sorry, there's Fillmore's under construction right now with the lights getting replaced and we're going into holiday.
Is it?
Oh my God, it's holiday season.
I know.
I know.
It's like we have the lighting.
When?
Always so exciting though.
Then advisory board,
What?
when the next meeting?
No, when is Cherry Creek West coming to the design? process?
Okay, good question.
We will.
Maybe I
It's a good segue to the next topic
Yep.
on the agenda, Design Advisory Board. So we do know, and Jenny, let me just ask, have the Design Advisory Board modifications to adjust to the specifics of Cherry Creek West, where are those right now?
Understanding from speaking with Matthew Bossler, who's drafting those from the city, is that he is finishing his draft and then it will be posted on the city's website for 21 days. And then there'll be more comment and review. And then there'll be a meeting after that to adopt those with the DAB. So we look forward to seeing that new draft very soon.
And will you just put that over to me so that I can share it with this team when you get it?
Yeah, it'll be public. It'll be on a city website, the draft.
But if you could just get the link to me, that would make it easier.
And maybe I can clarify. Thank you, Jenny, for this information. The amendment to Cherry Creek North Design Advisory Guidelines and Standards would not be by Design Advisory Board. It will be by the city, but it will be a public process and a public meeting will be scheduled for that process. And Design Advisory Board acting as advisory to craft this amendment. So approval will not be done by the Design Advisory Board, but Design Advisory Board acted as advisory to the city planning department.
Thank you, that's good to know.
So
And
they're really, it's really the design guidelines that are being adopted.
amendment to the current. And this is a good segue because I would like to give everybody a little history.
Oh, wait, I have one thing.
Okay,
I want Richard to talk a little bit about
Yes.
why you're so important to the steering committee and to our neighborhood.
I had asked Lou when I found the Olga was gonna be, I said, let me introduce Olga because she does so much for us. And I don't think the people on this call, if you understand the amount of work that Olga does for this neighborhood. And I say, we don't have a great neighborhood by accident. We have a great neighborhood because of what goes on in this room and what goes on in the city and other rooms like this in the neighborhood. And Olga is here at every design advisory board meeting. She handles more, probably obnoxious phone calls from this guy, trying to get simple questions for things. And I can't say enough about the work that she does that impacts our lives and what we see. So thank you, Olga, for the time. She will have 60 projects in front of her and take a phone call and help us out. So.
And recently, for example, when this group approved the Electrify America, we approved that. The Olga called, she said, you don't really have the landscape plan. And I'm not happy with it. I said, well, we didn't really see a detailed landscape plan. So I tapped Mary and a couple of folks and Chris Dunn, who is a landscape architect. And we had 3 or 4 calls, made them change their landscape plan to provide more flowers at the turn into the mall. I walked around and took pictures of the big transformers, including the one that was wrapped. They agreed to wrap, not the XL ones, because the XL won't let them, but the other transformer. So that process, even though we'd approved the location, the detail of it took another 4 or 5 calls. But, and Chris Dunn, thanks to Chris, because he weighed in and he said, those trees don't work in Colorado. I don't, who's working on this? So it got changed in a way that's much, much better. So I said, hey, foul, I don't like this. Are you sure you guys have looked at this? And we said, well, no, we weren't asked. We weren't given a specific. So she got the specific and then we worked on it and then it changed. And now it's better.
Thank you, Lou. And thank you very much, Richard. I think I'm just doing my job, but you know, because this morning I have all kinds of questions and requests why my project not approved yet. So it's good to hear something complimentary. Thank you. And thank you for inviting me to this meeting. I would like to provide you some background and I would like to provide information how your group could help the city to make this district even better from what we see right now. It's already went through great transformation. I moved to the city of Denver in 2000 and I've been going to Cherry Creek every single weekend, taking my daughter, my 5 years old, doing painting, beeline buses, as you remember, some of you may remember, and farmers market, and go to the toy store that moved away, that magic store, you know, so every child. Every time the good place close, my heart is going, why I cannot see this in this district, even though I have never lived in this district, I'm really attached personally and professionally to this district. I've been a liaison for the Cherry Creek North Design Advisory Board for the last 3 years. And my primary role is to help projects to navigate them through design. I'm also a project coordinator for the area. So if a new project comes to the area, it comes to my hands, and then we're working, helping developers to realize their dream. And with this, I would like to share a small presentation. I know you told me a couple of days ago, say, would you like to come? I'm like, sure. And I had this presentation made for another reason, but it also would work for your group, and I would like to share it. And I'm more than welcome to provide you answers and guidance. All right, so I will share my screen. Where the share screen? Share. I think this works. So let's. Yeah, and you do full screen if you would like. Now I don't know how to make my full screen. You know, I need to click something. Yes, F, Control F.
That should be. Full screen?
Full screen.
You get a different version.
I'm a city. I have all the.
Get an older version.
I'm a city. Sorry. Okay, this one. Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Thank you. Even all the version works. Thank you. So what is really Cherry Creek? It's an area encompassing many small neighborhoods, including Cherry Creek North, now Cherry Creek West, and people know Cherry Creek. It's kind of language people use as a destination. Yes. And while I'm primarily working for Cherry Creek North, I also have projects throughout this area. It's all the way from west from Colorado all the way to I-25. My area is large. And a little background. In 1999, the city approved planned building group for the mall. And at that time, the city adopted standards and guidelines for Cherry Creek Shopping Center. And those guidelines been in place since 1999 and guiding future development. And that guideline also included West End, which is you see on the plan, but West End design guidelines should come in the future. Well, the truth, they never came. Yes. We've been waiting for 25 years.
Oh, wow.
Yes, until now.
I was involved in that process.
Yes, so that's the thing. So in 2012, we have amendment to the zoning and adopted design standards and guidelines for Cherry Creek North, which has its own boundary. It's only north from First Avenue. It's bounded by Third Avenue along University, also encompassing that little shopping center, Good Feet, and so on, and it's go all the way to Steel Street. And we have also some additional plans and guidance that also provide us guidelines. It's not just these two documents. We have several moves. We have a DOTI complete street. So we have a lot of documents. We're merging them every time we work on any project. And we also have a bid its own standards as Cherry Creek North streetscape design standards. While we try to coordinate as much as we can, there is some not alignment, misalignment, and we acknowledge them. And as we're moving forward, we will address them. And currently, we're working on one, how a right-of-way should be designed. The latest DOTI guidance that when steps are proposed, which we see in Cherry Creek North, little steps from street parking to the sidewalk, we should accommodate them with the ramps. We cannot just have stamps. It's a, even though those parking not that fully ADA accessible, DOTI regulation require provide ramps every 50 feet. So people don't have to walk on the street. This is a big topic. It impacts every single project. And we know we heard from BID, we heard from Design Advisory Board, from landscapers, from city forestry, from DOTI, and I've been all in this project, so that's why I don't have time to review it. It's a really hot topic. We are working through this, and this is something you should probably hear soon on some changes.
Imagine all your trees and landscaping going away for ramps.
Yes, that's the
That's
impact.
worst case scenario, that's the impact.
Wow.
And we have to be sensitive.
In the city.
Yeah, it's not a big thing, this is like, if you're gonna take step out of a parking lane up, you need to have a ramp accompanying.
And the reason being, we have to be accommodating those people who may have a stroller. It's not only people with wheelchairs and things and walkers. It's also just people who may not be able to walk on the street, and it's not safe. That's position, the Department of Transportation. Street is designed for vehicles. People should not walk on the streets when they live in their cars. It's a big topic. It's we live in an urban city. We have more and more people coming in. In the big cities, I grew up in a 10 million people city. I always think there is a way in how people work and everything is merging. But in Denver, we're still young city considerably. Yes, 200. How old we are?
Not
200 years.
175.
125. So we're still a young teenager, still merging with adolescents. So we are.
Where are you from?
I was born in Central Asia, in city of Samarkand.
Oh.
It's a silk away from China,
Okay.
Silk Road. I was growing up everywhere in Soviet Union. My parents were geologists, traveling and doing expeditions in China, everywhere. I went to college in my last 10 years before I moved to this country. I spent in Moscow, Russia. So I grew up in many big cities and in the Soviet Union, and in the last 20 years, I'm living here. So that's my background, and I
Thank you.
studied in Germany as well, in multiple cities, including Hamburg and Munich and so many others. So
And you worked in Lakewood, and I worked with you in Lakewood.
yes, I
But you
worked.
moved to the city now.
I am working, yes, and now people ask, what is your next career step? I'm thinking, I'm going to open, I don't know, maybe a dog, a little shop. So speaking with dogs, they never argue with you, yes? My story, why we argue is when we work on a project, we argue, we may not disagree, we have some conversation. At the end, we still see not across each other, we still looking to the same direction, how we making the city better, how to improve lives. And so at the end, we're happy and celebrating with a glass of champagne.
So just go back to the ramp business. I mean, that's probably not for your presentation, but
Sure.
so you do the rampy thing and you take away the trees, and then don't we have this big initiative in the city about getting more trees and having
Yes.
more green
Yeah.
space? And
One of
the
the
fact that we're heat zones and we,
Yes, a lot of conversations are going
how
on.
do you balance
big
that?
conflicting,
I am actually been also on steering committee and part of the work on this urban forestry strategic plan that's been just adopted. I've been part of presenting CPD, and yes, we try to create more coverage with the tree canopy and improve our city, heat islands. This is a big effort. The city it's a something that we need to balance with many different, sometimes conflicting, sometimes different priorities. And that is a skills in art, working for the city, how we are balancing these priorities. And we cannot, I always say, like Jenny heard many times working on Cherry Creek West, I'm saying we need to allow trees to thrive, not just for 5 years, not just for 10 years. We go to City Park and we see oak, 100 years old oak. That is the beauty of the city. It's not replacement and cost of replacement. It's about what makes city the city at those special places. Yes, and we will continue to work, and we working with forestry, how to, in the DOTI, we're taking a strong stand that DOTI, we understand your priorities, but we need to acknowledge trees, and we need to save those trees. So we are working, balancing everything. And
Oh, that's a big effort. I'm a big park and trees person, so.
yes, Definitely, definitely. It's also very important for the city. As you know, we have this new park and rec manager, John Clark, is big supporter of.
So has that, and I mean, I'm getting us off topic and I am sorry, but I am a big parks and tree person. So has this initiative of ramps and stuff, is that out there or is this just been?
Initiative. What I learned from a manager of a Dutch, we have layers all the way up. It went all the way up to the top managers. It's been rules and regulations for any development in the city, as it has not been enforced properly. And now with some complaints, as you may know, maybe not, the city been sued by Red Rocks a few years ago. And I was part of presentation when the person who came from Chicago, the person who was instrumental in creating ADA rules, and he called the city how we should follow ADA rules, how we should promote accessibility to all. So that's what the city is taking strongest step, each department now, after that lawsuit, that we need to make sure that we are acknowledging needs and we are working toward to accommodate everybody.
So this is all related to ADA.
Yes, but there is a question, is the city street parking really ADA accessible? People say, not really, but sometimes you can see sign ADA accessible parking stall. So this conversation is active, and as a result, what I'm thinking, we're going to allocate certain ADA accessible stalls along streets, and those stalls will have direct accessibility. So we can provide access to those who need access, and we all someday will need it. So yes.
This is going to, this,
A complete street still a concept is being.
Yes, complete streets to better understand, for you to better understand how the city works. First, there is a complete streets guidelines, something like this. It's been adopted. After this step, each department will take this complete street guidelines or any other guideline and create rules and regulations using this guideline, and they will amend the current rules and regulations. So the Department of Transportation, DOTI, is actively working to incorporate guidelines from complete streets to their rules and regulations. And I'm thinking that's a part of this why it came to the surface, that we have not been enforcing this accessibility. And now it's not a new regulations. It's just something we.
so does this apply to residential areas as well?
Every single street, every single parking. And what's happened, let me give you a reason. In the old, when I moved to Denver, I worked in Lakewood on Colfax. Colfax is flooded because it's not been designed properly, it was not elevated. Colfax is really a route for water go from the mountains all the way down. And I think in the 80s, EPA and federal regulations have been in place, and the city is enforcing them, that each new building need to be elevated above a floor line, above flooded lines, so any flood will not be impacting that new building. And that is the reason why new buildings suddenly been elevated. The old building been flushed. And they have to do it because the city enforcing federal rules. And now they elevated. Now we have this difference. And now we want to promote accessibility by retailers. We don't want to have steps inside. We want to have a flush sidewalk, open doors, a sidewalk sale. It's wonderful. Yes, it just the mother nature does not work with us.
But you're working on that, right?
We're working, and we will, if you would like, we can bring you update when some rules will be created, so you're more in line. Every single street in city of Denver will be subject to those rules. But this Cherry Creek is greatly impacted because density and because how much walkability and how much retail activity is within Cherry Creek.
So, okay, I'm just, I need to stop, but, so we're gonna create a cement jungle without
No.
green space?
We are not planning, we still have a overarching comprehensive plan, which if you read, there's 5 pillars. And one of them resiliency and environmentally resilient city and health and welfare of residents. It's part of this greening city. So we're still working, it's a big puzzle, we need to find a solution.
I'll stop, I will stop, I will stop.
Questions, and we'll come back.
Lots of working conversations.
So just going back, there's a lot of different initiatives and plans. Denver Move Cherry Creek just been adopted. And propose certain things within the right of way also impacted, for example, water quality pond being as a part of the solution. I brought this up to issue to the wastewater, say, do we really want water quality pond from Cherry Creek North? Because it's a tree lawn now going to be a little pond, may not be appropriate. There's a lot of conflicting. I just want to give you flavor what we do behind what you see.
Okay.
So the main document for review within the Cherry Creek North is Cherry Creek North Design Guidelines and Standards, a site with a mall site. And as we know, we've been we're authorized to review the CET per chapter, per Denver zoning code. And now is a rezoning of Cherry Creek West, that Cherry Creek West area will be a sub area 3, will be added to the design standards and guidelines. And so the design board will also review all projects within its sub area 3 for Cherry Creek West. And as Jenny mentioned, we have a review by the board of a draft. The board provided comments, and Matthew Bosler working on amending this draft. It will be open to public shortly. Keep looking for website. It will be advertised as public version, and a public hearing will be scheduled. And you're welcome to provide your feedback, comments when the public version will be available. And again, we're aiming to align the new trends and standards and challenges we're all facing, accommodating densifying city and how we can still provide a livable city, a livable streetscape so people enjoy day-to-day life. It's not just junk, yes.
As long as it's not all concrete.
And the board's put a lot of thought.
Right.
Yes,
Yeah, and a lot of work on it. I mean, I've read more stuff in the last.
yes. And Matthew incorporate most of your comments, Richard. He told me I took the big comments and most of them are incorporated. I would like to for a second go back to shopping center. This guidelines being adopted in 1999, and I took this area from my colleague not that long time ago, and we didn't have really any big projects since that R&H store came up and Apple. But what I reviewing this information, what I noticed, first that any large development will need to go to planning board for design review approval. And before they go to planning board, public notification is required. And Cherry Creek Steering Committee is a key organization because by presenting project at the steering committee, public notification has been fulfilled. That's how important role you all playing in this process for any changes within the Cherry Creek Shopping Center. And on small projects, we send you for feedback for your reference, but the large project will go to planning board. So that's your involvement. And this is codified and approved by planning board, design standards and guidelines.
So just clarification. Oh, I am so sorry. It goes to the steering committee, but it doesn't go to the individual RNOs that are impacted.
So in general, city of Denver is unique in a way. I work several cities and municipalities, and each municipality has its own rules of notification. In Denver, a city notifying only RNOs within 200 feet from a project. We always recommend notifying more than just RNOs. We always want to extend notification, but legally, that's what is required. And only for a certain project like rezoning, like adoption of design standards and guidelines, but not for individual projects. Each individual project will come to this area. We are guided by this document, and this document saying that presentation to Cherry Creek Steering Committee for public notification. You're welcome to spread it to RNOs. It will be your decision how you want to handle it. You may want to, when a notification is sent, the presentation is scheduled, you may want to include RNOs. It will be your decision.
Well, they are members of the steering committee, so that's.
Whatever, however it works. Yes, this is your choice.
Now, you'll be able to send that document to me. 'Cause I'm not sure.
Which one? This,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
that'd be great.
I will send you. Yes. So that is a key role for the steering committee. We, the city, will rely that presentation to your committee has been made, and any comments and guidelines that suggestions comes from the review, we will acknowledge and as part of review and approval. And the large projects will go to planning board, small projects, for example, like we have some restriping over parking within a parking garage, we have some small changes. It doesn't need to go to planning board, but on a large project, let's say parking lot in front of former Safeway will be developed, definitely it will go to planning board. And it's still zoned under old code B3. Believe it or not, it's still old code, and the biggest hurdle developers need to overcome is FAR, floor area ratio. These projects still need to meet, and they have some exception for minimum parking, but it's a big challenge to develop anything within this area.
So can I ask a question about timing? I hear what everything you're saying, you know, it's gonna come to the steering committee and then it'll come out to the neighborhoods, but just my experience of what had happened with Electrify America. I mean, I was really confused. I'm not wanting to like that, but I was really confused why the Electrify America folks were saying this has been going on for a year. This is the longest project that is under permit in the country. You know, there was a lot of stuff going on. And so, you know, this is something that Lou and myself and Olga were involved in more detail. But my question really is about the timing, because there are a lot of people that have to be involved in public notification, even if it comes through the steering committee, you know, to get to each of our RNOs, to get to a board meeting, to get formal approval. And so I'm just curious, not to be answered tonight, but, you know, as this relationship evolves, that we are given adequate time to react so that we're not holding up the process or not having a voice at the table. And, you know, I think there's a real opportunity for lack of communication.
I hear you. I'm very sympathetic to your questions, and I'm also raising this internally in the department. What you may know lately, we have a priority which took over the design in general. Year ago, we have the chief urban designer for the city of Denver, Eugenia, that we left, and that position's still not filled, and I don't know if it's going to be filled. And her person who was taking over from her also left. So the design department of city community planning development right now is struggling to find means and find people who can fulfill mission for the city in the meantime. Right now, the priority for the city, we have a lack of affordable housing. There is infrastructures that need to be replaced. There's so many other priorities. Unfortunately, because I'm passionate for design and I'm a planner by degree, I'm also a city engineer, I'm also a structural engineer, work on the structural projects. But city is my passion. Everything goes from below grade, above grade, everything around, and landscaping. And I'm trying to elevate this. So even in the now time when we don't have a budget, when we struggle with finding budget for finding another chief urban designer, we still will keep the importance and not to make it difficult for developer. We've been really good with the design board. We've been very effective in streamlining. So we're actually very efficient. And design board real efficient. They review and approval, do not slow down. On a shopping center, it's slightly different because we don't have a well-established process, and I'm working on it. So hopefully this project we work on Electrify America will be example how what we should not.
And how we can work together.
Yes.
Right. And the timing of it, I think, is, you know, trying to understand so we can.
They were a little
react.
tense, weren't they?
And it's
No,
not such a critical
if you were like
piece.
meant for a year.
I mean, it's
think
a
I would-
real critical piece, but it doesn't seem to be a priority with the city.
A couple of people here who have no clue what is electrifying.
Well, okay, so I'm going to go on a tangent. It was just something that Lou had mentioned earlier.
We had a presentation at the steering committee, Alan. I'll link the meeting to you so you can see the presentation.
I have no idea what you're talking
Oh,
about.
no, it was a presentation at the steering committee by Electrify America in the mall. we voted to approve locating 5 stalls, but it was at the steering committee. And so I'll, and we post those, so I'll link that to you so you can get up.
You're talking about the charging.
Yeah.
This is
Why do you say charging?
It's more about communication.
Okay, fine.
Yes, basically, the question about communication.
Communication and timing is adequate time for us all to
Yes.
respond. That, and it's really more of just, how can we work better together in the future?
And I believe the model will work with the design advisory board for charity course could be used for the steering committee because we use very effectively, very efficient. And that's why when you asked, would you like to come? I said, this would be a great opportunity, first step to create this partnership so we can better help each other and make sure that our primary role, we would like to beautify city, but we do not want to bring more problems and challenges for developer. Because what I see every single day with delay project is money, and that money I would rather use to make project better, not to spend just waste on paying.
Right. And that would be our goal as well.
Yes.
I think the Cherry Creek West was an example of working well together and coming to a successful conclusion. But there are a million little projects going on, right? And that's the struggle.
The other question I had, Olga, is about the zoning. Because it's a hybrid that you created, and I'm not sure we really understand.
Yes. Okay, that's good
Is it
thing.
evolving still?
Yes, so this image probably can help you. So what is shown in sub area 3, that portion of the mall being rezoned to PUD. It's a special zoning, land use development. The rest of the mall will remain under B3. So the zoning, but the design guidelines, which I share on the next page, it's only related to the mall. When in 1999, the design guidelines been adopted, they were adopted for the mall only, with expectation that soon we will adopt design guidelines for Cherry Creek West Side, which is sub area 3. And then never been adopted until now, we're working on adoption of actual design guidelines.
So are they still evolving? And will we be involved in that?
Design guidelines for Cherry Creek West, which is sub area 3, as Jenny mentioned, is in the process being crafted. We've been working with the design advisory board, Cherry Creek North Design Advisory Board, and it comes to a public version will be available soon. I will send the link to you, Lou, when it's available, because I will be sending to the DB and you can distribute to anybody who would like to see it. It's a public version. Public hearing will be scheduled and you are welcome to provide your feedback.
Now, I would remind everybody that when we talk about the guidelines applying to sub area 3, Cherry Creek West, the only reason that they're being modified is to accommodate the pieces of the puzzle that are called out in the design guidelines that you don't have there. Primary streets, alleys. So it's not a whole cloth change or something different. It's just the design guidelines set in stone here talk about alleys. Well, this doesn't have an alley. So how?
Oh, I understand that.
So it's not going to be a new thing. It's just little changes. So I am hoping this will not be something.
And I've
After.
worked on those guidelines for several years, so I
Yes.
know the. Yes, did I. Yeah.
Yes, we've all acknowledged the prior work and we said that guidelines being really vetted well by the community, by design board, by everybody. And there will be some changes and changes such as, for example, guidelines said about active alley. We should promote active alley. Dati absolutely said,
That's not a big deal in the guidelines.
yeah, but those kind of things we will clean up because Dati would not
Sure,
allow
okay.
people
We
travel.
never
But
got.
otherwise, primarily the amendment, it will be really primarily target sub area 3 and unique layout of sub area 3.
Yeah.
And again, shopping center was still under old guidelines for Cherry Creek Shopping Center.
Okay.
And the steering committee is only going to review projects by these guidelines for shopping center. When projects come to design advisory board, sub area 1, 2, or 3, it will become to a design advisory board meeting and will be public meeting. It will be noticed agenda and you are all welcome to come and review and come, but no presentation will be made to steering committee, just to differentiate. Yes, it's hard to understand why, but
So So really what we're talking about is just the rest of the mall under the old guidelines.
Yes,
Because even though everyone can go, and several of us do, go to
JB.
the DAB, there's a public comment period. And we don't have a seat at the table, so we comment as public.
And the other thing about the old guidelines for Cherry Creek Mall were predicated on the fact that Nordstrom's would be at the corner of Steel and First Avenue.
Oh.
They're in essence obsolete.
Yes.
Plus the fact that the old guidelines dictated a detached sidewalk all along the south side of First Avenue, which when Nordstrom's went in,
That's Lord and Taylor, so isn't it before?
Yeah.
Yeah, Nordstrom's.
when when Nordstrom's finally moved to their present location, they did not do
Sidewalk.
a separated sidewalk.
Yeah.
And I don't think Restoration Hardware did it either.
Yes.
But they only followed what Nordstrom's
Yeah.
had started.
And certain things been made, things evolved. I took this area in 2018, so I cannot speak for everyone who was working on this before my time.
Yeah. You're
I'm sure.
looking at one.
I whatever projects went through my time, I can explain what and how this
Sure.
have been made.
Sure.
But everything else before, I can research if there probably was decision reasons for right now. Moving forward, we understand that we need to, as we grow bigger and bigger and more people on the streets, we need to make sure we're providing livable conditions. Many years ago, I went to a conference, Livable City Conference in Austria, and it was absolutely wonderful. And the presenter said, we have so many technical design standards, fire suppression, things like this, but what we're missing people. Yes, it ultimately going to help people, but at the end, we have this metal door shut down so people will not get burned. Yes, wonderful, but still, people should be in the center of all those documents, yes? And then livable city, how they create the documents, we should remember. So we need to remember this, and we are still trying to do so. Sometimes better, sometimes not so good. And your organization like yours is a great help, and we appreciate your involvement. Thank you so much. Anyway, going back, I think I'm almost done. So basically, I just want to know, steering committee will be a public notification for any projects in the Cherry Creek Mall. And just to, this is how we work. There are projects going to review. There is a zoning standard, there is a urban design standards guidelines, and then there's board review and their requirements, or steering committee review, and all need to merge when the project is approved. And that is the end of my presentation. If you have any questions, one thing I did not have it here, recently, some area outside of this immediate adjacency, like to First Avenue and the mall, in the past, we had a not adopted design guidelines. And then the city planning service took an effort and created DO9 overlay design district. So we have a special design review. It's codified. It's in the Denver zoning code. For example, project on Steel across the mall, this big office building. It's now zone CMX 12 with DO9 overlay. And DO9 is a design overlay, which requires certain mass reduction, certain additional setbacks, and so on.
We're familiar with that. We have two overlays in Cherry Creek East.
Yes.
Well, is that, I think you're talking about.
Yes. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
So did that apply to the borough project, your overlay? So that's what she's talking about.
Yeah, yeah. So that's what is a overlay projects. Hopefully it will be like,
Residential and a mixed use.
yeah, both residential and mixed use. So again, we as a city still growing. We're only 175 years old compared with all European cities. We all enjoy, but we still have a room to grow. And we appreciate any feedback, anything that you provide. And I know so many of you have been involved in Cherry Creek design and life of the city.
Well, can I make one comment, Lou? And I know I'm taking too much time, but the dialogue between the neighborhood and planning staff is so important. And I think Lou made that point in her presentation. And we used to meet in the basement conference room. And there was always a staff member. All the projects that came to the Cherry Creek area came to the steering committee, and there was an interchange with the design consultants. My background incidentally is also in planning and architecture, So, you were able to ask the dumb questions. We sometimes ended up being smarter than they sounded originally. And that precipitated a dialogue between the designers, the city. I mean, Chris Gleisner was involved in that, and it stimulated discussion. So by the time you left, you kind of understood what was going on and how the process was working. It seems like to me, particularly the East-West or the East-West project, that we have sort of been kept in the dark. That's been done behind the scenes with staff and with the developer. And we have never been able to engage with any of those consultants or with the city staff. And it's a shock to me after 15 years, really, of working, I think, on the steering committee, and Bob's longer than that. Yeah, it's just the process has changed. And looking at 4 people who've had that experience. Yeah, and it kind of wondered, when did that happen? And why is that the way we do things now?
Well, you and I spoke briefly of the planning board hearing when I spoke.
Yes,
And I asked at the time to improve communications between the steering committee and the design review committee, if there was a chance of finding some way to get some representation from the steering committee or the community at large, at least, on the design advisory board, so that we could report back and kind of keep everyone, take some of the pressure off you in terms of having to report everything to us. And we have a representative, so that could then keep us plugged in.
Chris Dunn was on both. When he was the chair before I was. And he was also on the DAB.
Yeah.
So when he left, I think I see him on the DAB, but that link was broken then.
Also, like,
He's not still in the DAB.
No.
But he shows up on.
He shows up.
Because he represents, Pat Grove.
For a long time, I attended all of the meetings of the DAB. That's the reason I had any input in the design guidelines, because I attended all the meetings and the chairman of the DAB allowed me to speak, which they don't do that. But now I just can't attend meetings.
Well, it is something I think that I did talk to Olga about, whether we could find a chair, a seat, if you will, at the DAB on behalf of the steering committee, and then we'll decide who that should be. We have plenty of good architects and other volunteers.
Sure.
So, but I think Olga was gonna look into that. The difference between then and now, of course, are several. We adopted a plan. We adopted zoning. We adopted design guidelines. So there, I think that, sort of the initial need to look at all of that one by one, once it's codified, now it looks like this. You don't necessarily need that, but I still think it makes sense to have this relationship, especially since this document that talks about the mall specifically calls out the steering committee.
Yeah.
So I think Olga was gonna look into that, right, Olga?
that is great segue, and I'm trying to find one image, but that's great segue to a conversation you and I had with the adoption of, not adoption, with approval of rezoning for Cherry Creek West. We've been discussing that we need to expand design board a number of members. And we're discussing also with BID that they would like to change composition, who is really representing BID. we already start discussion with the mayor office because composition is codified in the Denver zoning code. Very specific, how many architects, how many representation of retailers.
Yep.
Right now, for example, there's no any residents should be on the board, which is, we have so many thousands of people now living in the
They're
district.
moving in.
And yes, and we do not have any representation. And the steering committee is also, doesn't maybe need to be considered. I am communicating with the mayor office and I'm going to set a meeting and I will include a bid and Lou, so we can discuss what would be appropriate. And how we can change it. It's not gonna be quick, it's going to be probably take a few months. But right now is a good time because area expanded and we need more people review projects.
Really, sure, West, we should have somebody that side of the street, should we say?
So we're looking to you as being our advocate.
Yeah. And what I found when you're making a comment about involvement of people, I work for many municipalities and I find that they will struggle with involvement, how involve people. And I raise this to the top of my managers, to my director, and I talk personally. And I said, we need to do a better job. And on any projects, including Cherokee West, we notify our knowns, but we do not notify immediate neighbors. So the neighbor live next door may not be notified if he or she is not part of our known. It's not right. And I'm looking mayor goal, and you can find it Googling Mayor Johnson 2024 goals. He has 4 overarching goals, and one of the goal is creating vibrant community by engaging with every single person in each district. So this is what we need. We need to make meaningful participation and meaningful engagement. So we're looking forward, have a efficient but meaningful participation. We don't want just to have 100 meetings on the books, check. Everybody say why I'm here, what I'm doing, what you've been presented, your name is here, you've been notified, you've been part of the process. I'm not looking for that. And in fact, going back, I was speaking at that conference in Austria, Living City, as a public participation and what is the meaning of that and how it's different in different parts of the world. And I was surprised to hear how in European cities it's handled and how in America we handled it. So it's different, but
Interesting.
yes, very interesting. And it was 2004 in Salzburg.
Yeah, so,
Anyway,
well, actually, this is for you, Lou.
Oh.
So remember when Chris was president and he kind of pulled together a subcommittee to get together and talk about what the development projects were in Cherry Creek and then have more information, people that were more focused on that specifically. And I'm just wondering if that may be something that we should consider with all the work that's going on, that, that there is a subcommittee of the, I mean, you guys are talking that you've been involved in the design advisory board. And I mean, I was on it for 12 years as well and rewrote so there's a lot of experience here. And, I'm going back to, what I said earlier. I just think the communication and how we can help make this better because, there are so many conversations and so many departments and agencies within the city, and there's so many neighborhoods and groups of people, and it can just splinter out of control really quickly. And here, I think there's just so much of a vested interest by so many people about the quality of life here and the design and the trees and everything, that it just seems maybe, that we should consider.
So there were 2 points to that. So one, I think what you're talking about is, so when Olga and I spoke, and because they have to actually adopt these as a part of the code now, because they're expanding the area, there's an opportunity to get more seats, and it would be great if we had a dedicated steering committee seat. And, we have, it's really good to have a person identified as the head that holds that and reports to the steering, like committee of one. And if you wanted to have more people where you could rotate that, if there's an issue about whether somebody.
Or there's the representative, but then there is also a subcommittee of us that are focused on,
Yeah, bringing that. And I think what Chris did with that subcommittee
Mhm.
was the problem was that I think that the steering committee, he had a lot of trouble figuring out what to bring to the steering committee, how to make it successful. So that that's when Wayne was in office, and the real question was, how do we make the steering committee successful? So, I think was, so it's different than the subcommittee focused on the projects, because that's not what that was. It was really about who are we and what do we do? Of course, I didn't know until Olga told me that we were actually named as an entity in a document whose input was sought. And so this specific document for the mall says we have a seat at that table. So, but there's not a lot where at the time when Chris was doing that, where we had a focus. Now, of course, now we have true,
We were trying to figure out our focus.
right, and so
Now we have focus.
and we redid the bylaws, which will.
And that just happened.
And so, I mean, we really have, as I reminded everybody, we're here to stay now, and it's evolved. And I know when Nick talks about how it was started and there might have been a different focus, it evolved. Now we have legal obligations under this contract to do certain things and to get people involved who are willing to serve, just like boards of organizations with their fiduciary obligations. We have an obligation as a committee to function well. So I think when I stepped in for Chris and we changed some of the bylaws a little bit. And so I've been trying to put more structure on who we are and what we do and what information we get so that we can share it with the RNOs. The business community can share what they want with the residents to really tie us together. And I think that further evolution resulted in this East-West partnership agreement, if you will. So I think right now that our focus is pretty good, but if we can, in terms of that, but if we can get the seat and then we can have, you or, one of these architects who serves.
Yeah.
And so to actually have this committee, and whether it's the 3 or 4 architects sitting here, this is the committee to report to us and tell us what this stuff is.
Committee.
I think that would be good, because you'd have people that could really dive down into the detail
Yeah.
and not just be, one person or two.
And
people.
so that would be a different kind of thing than that subgroup, but it would be a committee of these architects that can provide value.
I mean, I think that would be good. I don't know that it only has to be architects, but I do think it is something we should consider.
Well, we just need to see if we can get a seat, right?
Yep.
But everybody can attend. And so it would be, I think, really important maybe to go ahead and assume right now that we're going to get more involved, and we should think about, this will be action for next month. We should really think about going ahead and having a committee of the steering committee that agrees that they will go to those meetings and report back. Because we go when there's a topic that we need to address, but we don't go to every one of them. But somebody from the steering committee should, and then have a quick little report. And whether it's a committee of the architects for now or whatever, what do you
In the
think?
meantime, I could provide an every PM meeting.
Yeah.
So I can at least provide an update on, these projects are coming and we're having this conversation.
Yeah.
And maybe until something's figured out, that's a.
We're definitely there.
I'm just the guy.
And maybe it's not.
There's still a bigger issue with the city than just the DAB. Olga touched on it briefly, but the fact is that the city is not devoted to urban design.
Right.
The city has not been able to keep an urban design director. I spent most of my career in urban design. I was the person who introduced the concept to Denver, because I gave a lecture on urban design in 1961 to the City Club of Denver. Nobody had ever heard of it before.
Well, why did our urban planner, why did that not work?
Right.
The mayors,
Why is none of them?
it starts with the mayor.
Yeah, that's priority.
The mayor does not if the mayor does not understand what urban design is, it doesn't happen. Doesn't listen to the staff.
I was really, personally was very hopeful. I was on a panel for interview when our prior CPD manager, Laura already opened this position. And we have a nationwide search for the chief urban designer. And I was on a panel interview when we have a few candidates. All of them was a fine candidates. And when the decision was to give this position to Eugenia Di Lorama, she definitely, and I talked with her so many times, she was inspired to step and make a big moves, help the city grow into something next step. Because we've been wild west, growing businesses, and I can see it in the last 20 years. And there's good things grow out of it, but someone need to just polish it and put it in a really nice form.
Yeah.
Because what I see, I'm coming from a culture, when I went to college, my professor said, everything we teach you, you will forget tomorrow, but we will give you a fundamental framework, what you can feel with your knowledge later by yourself. So what we need a framework for urban design in the city of Denver to create a strong framework when new projects will fill in those cells as they grow. But right now, we're still dealing with one specific project in one specific area, and we hope this will be wonderful, but we do not create fundamentally a framework for the city.
Right.
And that's what we're struggling. And unfortunately, Eugenia left us. The priority slightly different right now, affordable housing and different things. I still hopeful, and we still hold strong in the CPD that urban design is important, and we will do our best.
It's important for affordable housing.
Yeah.
I mean, affordable housing.
Affordable housing is just a tiny piece.
It's just a
It's a
tiny piece.
piece of little urban design, little city, and has to work like. And that's what you bring is an organic process that was part of the European process.
Yeah.
When I went to graduate school, there were only 2 in my class of 12 from this country. All the rest of them were from other countries, mainly European countries. And we had Russian as well. And urban design was a matter of a dialogue between all those different cultures to find something that didn't have that name. It did there. Urban design did not have a name until 1956.
How old are you guys?
Was introduced by my third year in graduate school.
30s.
I would not argue. I study urban design.
Ready. Let's talk about this new concept.
I'll send you.
We have digressed.
We have.
We have digressed. Yes, we have.
People all agree that we
Champagne
have a
talking.
momentum with the Cherokee West. Let's keep that momentum. Let's keep a momentum of engaging with the city,
Yeah.
with the public, with neighborhood. Let's keep momentum to keep key urban design principles alive and implemented. And we will rely on your feedback and your help. While we still don't have perfect engagement process, feel free to reach me. My name is on the CCMDB website, my name, my contact. Feel free to reach me. Email is the best. Our phone system not working well. We're moving from building to building. Now we're in the
Communication.
So I'd like to just
Don't fall.
say how much we appreciate.
Yeah, thank you very much.
I think we are really lucky to have East West because if anybody has looked at their projects, they do really good design, but they're just starting that process. So, maybe the city, we're lucky to have them, and maybe by the time we're moving to some other things, the city will have its focus back.
Is Gensler really the designer on this project?
Gensler is the master architect, and we'll have a separate architect working on the residential building that we'll be announcing a little bit later. But Gensler is the master architect for the overall plan, and then they're doing our first office building. And design workshop is our landscape architect.
Remember when Phil,
So,
Curry was there?
Jenny, if as this comes out and you want to, you talk to Amy, and as this moves forward, you can let us know, and we have a quick little update on most of, if not quarterly. You guys are now on the committee. we'll hope to see you. We'll always let you provide an update because things, I assume, will start moving fairly quickly now on your end. As it's been a long time coming. So with that, we're almost out of time.
Just,
A lot of, Linda?
just a comment from somebody that listens in on DAB. I want to just thank Richard at the last one. He brought up critical elements around the alley. They've been going on the alley forever, but you brought up both the alley and then the bloom. 30 inches to 31.5 inches. You bring a reality perspective. You ask really good questions that bring in the neighborhood of how they impact both on Bloom and, but the one I remember on Bloom is your point about this business has moved 3 times. How do we honor and keep them in the neighborhood where everyone else was about this and this and this? So I appreciate your voice that brings in kind of the people who actually live and walk and see those. So just to thank you, Richard, for what your voice.
Yeah, Richard, you are a really
It's
key.
common sense approach.
It's
So,
one last thing, activating alleys. It's finally gotten done by Matt Joblin in the Lane Lane project.
It's,
And I love that.
yes. It's a concept, it's those European little alleys, little things, people love it.
Love it. Yes,
I
ma'am.
think the conflict in our brain, and I'm now living in this country longer than I live in my country where I grew up, even though my country is now multiple countries. The idea, everybody in this country love European city, feel and look and sit in the alley and have a coffee. And then we all want to jump in our car and drive and find.
It's great.
That's not merge, you know, you have to choose one or not.
Yeah.
And if you want both, it's hard.
Yep,
Yeah.
It's a place to have it happen. though.
it is.
We recorded, still on record. Yes. Yes.
We already have an amazing thing at Clayton Lane. I think that little cherry
Yeah,
lane is gonna be,
That's good.
it gives us just even great retail leasing opportunities.
One thing I want to mention, Clayton Lane going through a design, board of adjustment for certain design aspect. If you like, if the steering committee like the project, you would like support, you're welcome to attend board of adjustment and support this project. As
I
we-
haven't seen the filing on that yet. Has it been filed with the Board of?
As of yesterday.
Okay. So I'm on the Board of Inc. and I usually get all of those.
Okay, it's.
So when I see that, I'll try to send it around to the steering committee. And then usually Matt will reach out if he wants us to weigh in and try to help them and provide a letter of support. And we should do that. I will say that the alley issue in Cherry Creek, we only have 2 minutes here. The alley issue in Cherry Creek is, I think, problematic because all of the entrances have to be off the alleys. Too much car traffic. And so activating it with any pedestrian use is difficult.
And another good segue, the 180 Steel, which is Waldorf Astoria, will go to Board of Adjustment for their alley access. That's
For their-
another opportunity for this board. Again, I'm not talking on behalf of the city, it's a Dutch transportation has certain standards. We have a planning standards, but the steering committee, welcome to bring your voice.
Who chairs the Board of Adjustment?
Ignacio,
Has he?
and now he's on the design board.
On
as
our
well.
design board.
Was a good friend of mine.
Yeah, Ignacio is chairing the chair of the board. Any other questions?
I think we are about to adjourn here for the day. So thank you, everybody, for coming. Thanks again for participating.
Thank you.
Thanks for the champagne.
Thank you.
And thanks to those of you at home.
Thank you.
Thank you for inviting me.
Well, thank you for coming. I think you were a good draw. I knew